What if I told you that behind the felt and fur of your favorite childhood puppet show was a world of creative chaos, backstage feuds, and production disasters that would make reality TV look tame? The Muppet Show wasn't just entertainment magic happening on screen. It was pure mayhem happening behind the cameras. And today, I'm pulling back the curtain on secrets that even the most devoted fans have never heard before. Picture this. It's 1976, and while families across America are gathering around their television sets to watch Kermit the Frog introduce another spectacular variety show, just feet away, puppeteers are cramped in impossible positions, sweating profusely, and sometimes even fainting from exhaustion. The show that brought joy to millions was built on a foundation of physical torture that would make medieval interrogators jealous. But that's just the beginning of what really went down during those 5 legendary seasons. From heated arguments between Jim Henson and network executives to puppet heads literally exploding mid-performance, the Muppet Show's backstage reality was far more dramatic than anything that ever appeared on screen. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll never look at Miss Piggy's karate chops or Gonzo's cannon stunts the same way again. Let's start with something that sounds absolutely insane, but is entirely accurate. The puppeteers performing The Muppet Show worked in conditions that were essentially human torture chambers. Imagine spending 8 to 12 hours a day crouched below floor level, with one arm stretched above your head, controlling a puppet's mouth and movements. In contrast, your other arm manipulates the hands through nearly invisible fishing line. Your neck is craned at an impossible angle so you can watch tiny black and white monitors that show you what the audience sees, and you're doing all of this while wearing headphones to hear director cues that are often drowned out by the chaos of live recording. The physical demands were so intense that puppeteers regularly suffered from what they called Muppet arm, a condition where their raised arms would go completely numb from lack of circulation. Some performers actually collapsed during taping and had to be carried out, but the show went on because there was simply no time for breaks or recovery. The production schedule was relentless, and every minute of delay cost thousands of dollars. Frank Oz, the man behind Miss Piggy and Fozzie Bear, once described the experience as being like a medieval torture device disguised as children's entertainment. He wasn't exaggerating. The puppet stages were built so low that tall performers had to work in positions that would make yoga instructors wince. Many of the core puppeteers developed chronic back problems that plagued them for years after the show ended. But the physical challenges were nothing compared to the creative battles happening at every level of production. Jim Henson might have been a gentle genius in public. Still, behind the scenes, he was fighting constant wars with television executives who simply didn't understand what The Muppet Show was trying to accomplish. Network suits would regularly demand changes that would have destroyed everything that made the show special. One particularly heated confrontation happened during the second season, when executives insisted that the show needed more human characters and fewer puppet interactions. They wanted to turn The Muppet Show into essentially a traditional variety show with Muppets as occasional comic relief. Henson reportedly exploded during this meeting, shocking everyone who knew his typically calm demeanor. He threatened to walk away from the entire project, rather than compromise his vision. The tension got so bad that at one point, the network considered replacing Henson entirely. They had secretly begun auditioning other puppeteers to take over the main characters, believing that Jim Henson was too difficult to work with. When Henson discovered these secret auditions, it nearly ended his relationship with television altogether. He seriously considered returning to experimental filmmaking and abandoning commercial entertainment completely. Speaking of Miss Piggy, her creation wasn't the smooth character development fans might have imagined. Frank Oz initially hated performing the character because the voice was so demanding on his vocal cords that he would lose his speaking voice for days after intense recording sessions. The high-pitched, breathy delivery that made Miss Piggy iconic was actually destroying Frank Oz's throat, and he begged to modify the character's voice multiple times. The situation got so bad that Frank Oz started seeing a vocal coach and had to do extensive warm-up exercises before every Miss Piggy scene. Even with these precautions, there were episodes where they had to significantly reduce Miss Piggy's dialogue because Oz literally couldn't speak. The irony is that Miss Piggy became one of the most beloved characters in Muppet history, but she nearly ended Frank Oz's career as a performer. Then there's the story of what happened during celebrity guest appearances that never made it into any official documentation. Many famous guests arrived on set with massive egos and specific demands that clashed horribly with the controlled chaos of Muppet production. Some celebrities refused to work with certain puppets, claiming they felt ridiculous talking to felt characters operated by unseen puppeteers. One major celebrity, whose name has never been officially revealed but was reportedly a huge music star of the era, showed up completely intoxicated and began arguing with Kermit the Frog as if the puppet was a real person. The situation became so uncomfortable that they had to shut down production for the entire day. Jim Henson was reportedly so frustrated that he considered implementing a sobriety clause for all future guest stars. Another guest star demanded that their dressing room be larger than the allocated space for puppet storage, creating a logistical nightmare because the puppet workshop needed immediate access to characters for repairs and adjustments. The compromise involved literally building a temporary structure in the parking lot, which then got damaged by rain and caused thousands of dollars in costume damage. But perhaps the most shocking revelation involves the show's famous opening theme song and credits sequence. What looks like effortless chaos was actually the result of dozens of failed attempts and technical disasters. The original concept involved live pyrotechnics that went horribly wrong during the first filming attempt, actually catching several puppet characters on fire and filling the studio with toxic smoke. The famous scene where the Muppets appear to be wildly celebrating and creating mayhem was originally supposed to be much more elaborate, with complex special effects and coordinated choreography. However, the technical limitations of 1976 television production made most of these effects impossible to achieve safely. What ended up on screen was essentially a desperate improvisation after multiple technical failures. Even more surprising is that the cheerful, upbeat theme song almost didn't exist. The original theme music was much more subdued and sophisticated, reflecting Jim Henson's preference for subtle, artistic expression. However, network executives insisted on something more energetic that would immediately grab children's attention. The compromise took months of negotiation and the work of multiple composers before they arrived at the version everyone knows and loves. The behind-the-scenes reality of The Muppet Show also included some genuinely dangerous moments that could have ended the series permanently. During one elaborate musical number featuring Gonzo's canon act, a miscalculation in the pyrotechnics caused an actual explosion that damaged expensive camera equipment and could have seriously injured performers. The incident was covered up at the time to avoid negative publicity, but it led to major changes in how they handled any scenes involving special effects. Similarly, the famous Swedish chef segments were far more chaotic than they appeared on television. The character required one puppeteer to operate the head and voice. At the same time, another controlled the hands, meaning two people had to work in perfect coordination while performing increasingly absurd cooking demonstrations. Multiple kitchen fires occurred during filming, and a fire marshal was on standby for every Swedish chef segment after the third incident involving actual flames. The show's international popularity created another layer of backstage drama that most fans never realized. Different countries had vastly different standards for children's television, so certain jokes, characters, and entire segments had to be modified or completely reshot for international distribution. This created an enormous additional workload for performers who were already pushed to their physical limits. Some countries objected to Miss Piggy's aggressive behavior, calling it a poor role model for young girls. Others found Gonzo's stunts too dangerous for children's programming. The result was that the performers often had to create multiple versions of the same episodes, sometimes spending weeks filming alternate scenes to satisfy various international censorship boards. Despite all these challenges, conflicts, and near disasters, Something magical happened during the production of The Muppet Show. The combination of Jim Henson's creative vision, the dedication of performers willing to endure physical punishment for their art, and the genuine chemistry between characters created television history. The show succeeded not because everything went smoothly, but because everyone involved was willing to fight for something they believed in. The legacy of The Muppet Show isn't just the joy it brought to audiences worldwide, but also the proof that great entertainment often emerges from controlled chaos. The backstage drama, physical challenges, and creative battles weren't obstacles to overcome. They were essential ingredients in creating something genuinely special. When you watch The Muppet Show today, you're not just seeing puppet characters entertaining audiences. You're witnessing the result of hundreds of people pushing themselves beyond their limits, fighting for creative integrity, and refusing to compromise their vision despite constant pressure from executives who didn't understand what they were trying to accomplish. The next time you hear that familiar theme song or see Kermit flailing his arms in excitement, remember that behind every moment of seeming effortlessness was a team of performers cramped in impossible positions, sweating through complex choreography, and creating television magic through sheer determination and artistic passion. The real magic of The Muppet Show wasn't just what happened on screen. It was the incredible human story of creativity, triumphing over every obstacle imaginable. That's the true secret behind The Muppet Show, and it makes those childhood memories even more special, knowing the incredible dedication that brought them to life.